Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Flynn Holbrook, President and founder of TruckSpy. I want to thank you for joining us this afternoon. We're going to talk about scaling your management team. And this is a topic that I think a lot of people struggle with, and a few folks have figured out how to do this correctly, probably through a lot of trial and error. So the goal today is we want to learn from their experience. Before we dive in, I want to just lay down just a couple of quick ground rules for everybody. So first of all, as a participant, you're muted right now. You will be throughout the session, so you don't have to worry about if you have background noise or anything like that. On the right side of your screen, there's a chat box. Feel free to type in here. I'm going to say hello right now. Feel free to type into this if you have a question. I'm going to be marking the questions. We'll answer them as they come in and as the conversation flows. Look, we really appreciate you being here. The last thing is session's going to be recorded. We will email out a link to that video after the session is completed, probably sometime tomorrow morning after it compiles and uploads. So with that, I want to introduce our expert guests for today. So we've got Tim Goff, first of all. He runs Oscar Mike. He's got 58 line haul tractors, primarily in the Southeast. He's grown a lot by acquisition recently. He just bought another company. And he's done something pretty interesting with his organization. So he's found a way to get 24/7 coverage out of his management team, which I think is really interesting because he's got night runs and day runs. And he's also in the process of starting a software company. So I want him to talk just briefly about that in just a second. So he's trying to automate payroll and some of the reporting stuff that FedEx Linehaul Contractors need from a financial perspective. And then we also have Dave Tomasch. So Dave is 80 plus Linehaul tractors. He primarily is in 3 regions, so Florida, Indiana, and Texas. And what's pretty interesting about his business is that he has compartmentalized his organization into regions. So he kind of has a different management team for each region, which is a different approach than some people have used. So the goal today is let's learn from these guys' experience, and let's try not to make the same costly mistakes that they made while they figured this stuff out. So Tim, I'd like to start with you. Tell us just kind of briefly, if there's anything you want to add, first of all, to how I just introduced you. Tell us a little bit about how your management team's structured, and then I want to hear just briefly what you're working on in the software space, if you don't mind.
Thanks, Flynn. Thanks for the introduction. It's great to be here today with you, and of course, the highly respected Dave Tomasch. So, I've been a FedEx contractor for 3 years. I was in corporate world at C-level for a couple decades in advance of that, and I'm in 7 different terminals now. And the way that I've decided to structure the management team is we have a supervisor on board who is assigned a shift 7 days a week. So we also use an 855 number so that at any one of those 7 terminals can call one number and get the duty supervisor. And it's the same thing for our drivers as well. So it's kind of a one call gets all approach, and that allows us to management over the 24/7 operation, which is a combination of, we do all solos, no teams, and we do a lot of spots. So we have day shift supervisors, night shift supervisors, we have weekend duty, and then we have an operations manager that kind of watches over all of that. Like everyone else that started in this business, I used to take all the calls. And I did that for a couple of years, taking pretty much all the calls 24/7. And of course, that'll wear you down, and you have to find a way, if you're going to scale your business, to share that load. So we have a very scripted management approach. There's very well defined job descriptions at every level of the chain of command, and everybody knows what they're supposed to be doing. We do a lot of support in the terms of enabling supervisors to know what to do and when to do it. Everyone knows every run has a schedule. We make sure that supervisors monitoring those schedules and PeopleNet software that we use, and to try to keep things on track. And that if you can manage problems in advance, then trying to solve a big deal at when it occurs is harder to do. We do our own maintenance at Oscar Mike, so we have a shop with a maintenance team. We have on-call mechanics. We have reached contractual agreements with folks who respond for tire issues or roadside service or all those kinds of things. We essentially try to scenario plan all the things that could happen and then script and answer for those situations in advance, so that we're not trying to figure out how to problem solve when a problem occurs. We already know how we're going to solve it in advance, and those responsibilities are assigned to specific people. So that's kind of has evolved over time, and that's kind of how we manage a 24/7 operation from our base of location in Birmingham.
And I would just interject here, Tim. So the way I met Tim actually flew helicopters with my uncle in the Navy, right, Tim? So, and in case you didn't hear his description, there were a few military phrases in there, right? We scenario plan, everybody's got a clean job description. Like I think that those are all lessons, Tim, wouldn't you say that you've drawn from that military experience a little bit?
Absolutely. I think there's no doubt about that. And one of the problems with the military guys, that stuff is kind of ingrained in how you think and talk, and it's not easy to distinguish and understand. Sometimes the audience may not pick all that up, but it's always better to plan in advance and then control. You have much more control by doing that. So we spend a lot of time planning. We start peak planning in February, and we plan all year on how we're going to handle peak. And, so that when it comes time to execute, we already had a staffing plan. We already have a tractor plan. We already know what we're going to do. And then it's just a matter of waiting for FedEx to figure out what they're going to do. And we all know that's usually at the last minute. So we kind of focus on planning. That is certainly a military characteristic.
Yeah. So, Tim, tell us just real quick, brief introduction to your software company, and then I want to jump over to Dave, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
Because I think what you're doing is pretty interesting. So,
I came from high-tech communications as a C-level executive for a long time, and I got into the FedEx Ground business. It's a great business on the line haul side, but I rapidly discovered there's not really any tools. So like everyone else, or like most folks probably, I use Excel and email and things like that to try to improve consistency and management and oversight of the business. But clearly you need some tools with the compliance requirements that you have, and the bigger you get, the harder it is to do payroll, and the harder it is to find exceptions on your settlement. It's not uncommon for FedEx to not pay you a fuel surcharge, and on 40 or 50 or 100 pages of settlement, it's really hard to find those. So there are no tools out there for that, so I just built one. So over the past 12 months, we've built a fully automated program that will automatically log into your My Biz Account portal, download your settlement, sort it into a database, and then run a series of processes that will then provide for the owner a rules-based payroll outcome that you can just submit right to your payroll service, upload it, and payroll will be finished. Payroll for my company is 10 to 15, 20 hours a week, depending on what's going on, and we're pretty confident we'll be able to do it in less than 1 hour now. We will find all your line haul exceptions in your settlement. We'll manage DOT compliance notifications, and all these things are fully automated now using state-of-the-art AI robots. So the name of the software is My Ground Force, appropriately enough, and we started this week with customers on board evaluating the software. So,
and we're going to talk a lot more in depth about that in a few weeks. We're going to have a whole session on using technology to automate your business. So we're going to dive in to a lot of the new tools that are coming out in the market. So Tim's got one, Haldy Tech's another, TruckSpy. We can do a lot of stuff that a lot of people aren't aware of. and there's inspection software. We're going to dive into all that stuff in a few weeks. So you'll get an email reminder. Please join us for that technology session. So now, all right, Dave, tell me, so 80 plus tractors, 3 states. You said before we went live that you're now in 12 terminals. Give us the play-by-play on how you're structured.
Well, thanks for having me, Flint. It's great to be here with you guys and talking to everybody that's kind of watching this. I've been a FedEx Ground Contractor for almost 19 years in February. And I just started with one truck of myself, so I did it a little differently. Did it organically, but small purchases here and there to kind of get things where you needed to get. So started here in Indianapolis with one truck of myself going to Champaign, Illinois. Now I can honestly tell you I haven't drove a truck in 2 years. So maybe to the shop or, something along those lines. But, I took a different approach to it. I'm a Navy guy, got out of the service, worked on race cars for a living, and, at 40, figured out I probably needed to figure out what I was going to do for the rest of my life. So just great to have gotten the opportunity to get on board with FedEx. We had a really great terminal manager here in Indianapolis, and she just looked at me and said, "Do you want to do this?" And I said, "Well, okay, yeah, I do. And what does it take and what is it about?" And just learned and grew organically. I have no business experience. I have no, it's just hard work, like Tim said. And like everybody that's on this call, it's all about the hard work and the time that we put into our businesses and what allows them to grow. So, we started with one truck and myself. We're at 85, and, our management structure is, we've got a 3-tier approach to management, and we've kind of got, like Tim, we've got shops in all of our locations. We do most of our own maintenance in all the locations. We've done all the stuff. We've just done it at a different pace. I'm just a regular guy. I've not ever been into any other business where there was any extra money. So I took a $10,000 loan on a credit card, put it $8,000 down on the first tractor, and I was lucky enough that my accountant and my lawyer put me in the right direction. You know what I'm saying? It got, help that guy out that needed the help. So we started out the right way with numbers, and we were able to work through cost per miles and work through all the things you need to work through. And we learned the hard way, like you talked about earlier. It's there was all those nights in the sleeper truck in the back, and missing the time at home. So now I get there's so many different approaches to what we do. That was my approach because that was the hand I was dealt. But I was able to grow because of the relationships, just like everybody on this call. Our relationships with whether it's the FedEx people or whether it's other contractors, whatever you were able to do and given those opportunities because of the business that you built. And I was really lucky to grow into Florida and then into Texas, and the team that we put together has the work ethic that I have. And like Tim said, they're military guys, hardworking guys. We built it on a little different approach, and we built what I thought would work best for us. And we've been blessed with a great business. So that's
absolutely, that's
start.
great. So Dave, I just want to throw a question your way, and I think that you've had to deal with this obviously because you started with yourself and you grew. At what point do you need a manager? I get a lot of questions from contractors throughout the week, especially new contractors, small contractors that say, I've got 5 or 6 or 7 trucks. I am just literally working my butt off, right? I'm driving nights, I'm answering the phone during the day, I'm doing oil changes on the weekends. Like at what point do you need staff? And what is that first hire? How do you think about that first hire?
So for myself, I was really lucky because the church that I went to, there was a lady at the church that helped me with some stuff, and she was a retired 70-year-old lady, bookkeeper type lady. And when I moved out of my home office, out of the house at 2.5 years in, just to a little small 500 square foot building. I brought in someone part-time. And so she was able to take care of the payroll, so I didn't have to do that. She was able to take care of ordering uniforms. The coil comms cameras, none of that stuff was here yet. So it was definitely quite a bit simpler. So the staff person in that business, I thought was most important. The thing I'm seeing now, and I'm part of a lot of groups, whether it's the van liner groups or some of these insurance groups or some of the things that I'm part of, I've seen a lot of husband and wives. So when you have that, when you're blessed to have that and have a partner that's involved in your business, and my wife now is involved on the business side of it, but nothing day to day. She has her own business, but she understands what we do and part of it. So I think the clerical part-time, you can find that right person that has your values, someone that if you're still doing it at the house, you can do it at the house. For me, I found like I said, really, really small little office. We put 2 desks in it, had a closet that you could just open the door and you could stick all the boxes of uniforms in there. And, it was pretty simple and basic, but it got us out of the house. It got me out of the house. It gave me a place to go. So my opinion is the first person is clerical if you don't have that. You ask about managers and when do you hire a manager? And I think it varies on how your business is orchestrated. If you're a truck driver, like I am, you still drive the truck till, I didn't ever really stop driving until probably 2-3 years ago, as far as line haul runs and covering on big runs and covering on things that you needed, P&D spots or whatever. I know 2 years ago I'm in Dallas and we do all the Chewy in Dallas. Any Chewy trailer that comes out of that place is ours, and we take it to the Dallas hub or wherever it goes. I'm down there for Christmas 3 years ago, and I'm pulling 8 trailers a day back to the yard. So you still had to do it, but now you don't have to do it, and you rely on those other people to do it. So you're lucky when it gets it. But the manager and that next level of management, it really depends on what you have in your back pocket, because everybody has different tools. If you're blessed that your wife or your spouse, your husband, whatever your partner is, they're supporting you on the back end where you're not having to pay a salary there, or a lot of people are paying their spouses and they're keeping it all in their house. That allows you to do things a little bit differently. My goal, and when I did this years ago, we were 8 or 10 before we actually could put a staff person in full-time to do that. And Bill had worked for me, and he's still with me now. He's been with me 17 years. Bill had worked with me running line haul at night and then ran team stuff for me also when we started. And he and I beat ourselves up and down the road for years, catching up on the teams when we'd lose the team or whatever. But, and now Bill obviously has slowed down a lot. Actually, he's going to retire in September. So we were able to bring someone in that had the driving experience, could still drive. And he was my first driver manager at 7 years in. So, but before that, you couldn't really afford it. It's not the business that we have now that requires the safety and all the rest of the stuff. And we have all that. We have all that in all of our locations now, but we're just now honestly getting there. And I can explain that later if you'd like to.
So first, and I just want a quick recap, and Tim, I'm going to ask you the same question. So first hire should be clerical, and Dave, I'm guessing that for your clerical hire, you've got to develop some processes for them to execute, right? How do you do payroll? How do you do whatever clerical work you want them to do? And
right.
And that has to be pretty well defined and documented and assigned. And then how many trucks were you, or maybe it's too far in the past and the business is now so different. What do you think the magic number is if I'm going to hire a driver manager in order for that person to have enough to do and me to, as a contractor, financially for that to make sense? What is that magic number?
Is that for
if
me?
you had to guess.
That's
for you, Dave. Yeah, that's for you.
I'm going to tell you 10. I'm going to tell you 10 is that driver manager, but he's got to be able to drive. He or she has to be able to drive. When we grew into the other markets, like when we grew into Dallas or even into Florida, that hired, so Dallas is probably the easiest one to explain. Back 5 years ago, you had to put on 2 tractors at the time. So I went into Dallas with the idea, and we run teams that meet Dallas out of Indy. So it was a natural place for us to go. So I hired 2 guys down there, and we were PM unassigned, just like everybody else. Walked in the door, that's what they gave me. We went in there with the idea, and I went in there with the idea that I need to find 2 good guys that I can kind of build our business around down there. And my head always told me, and we talked about it a lot already, is that military mindset that we had. So if you ever meet my people in Dallas, David in Dallas was 10 years in the Air Force. His sister had worked for me as a team driver, or his cousin, I get it mixed up, in Florida. And she said, well, David works for our cousin so-and-so, and he's not wanting to do that anymore. And we were the perfect fit. It was just David and I just clicked. And it's finding that right person. And then the thing that I didn't know that I was getting with David was I was getting someone that was real good on the IT side of it. He was really good mechanically, not as a truck mechanic, but Clay comms, cameras, the little things that you need that help on, especially because that was all new at that time too. So it's finding that right person. And what we did there is David was going to be a good fit. We hired another guy that didn't work out for long, but we had hired a part-time guy that had lost a job in a racing business. And I had known Eddie for 25 years from when we raced. And Eddie came on board, and he's been there. Eddie's been with us 5 years now. So we built it around people that I know I can trust, and I know that they believe in me. And that's what we've been able to do all along. And even to this day, I meet all the new hires. I make sure we get in front of them anytime I'm in Dallas and Florida. Sometimes it's hard in Fort Lauderdale or some of the remote locations to get there, but I always try to do it. And obviously with COVID, that's changed, but we're back to where we need to be. So 10 is what I would use as a number, and they still got to be able to drive. And I can tell you, David's been with me for right at 5.5, 6 years now. And I can tell you, he drove over the weekend, and he's in charge of 30 tractors. But our Chewy business is so important down there, and like I said, we do all the Chewy. So David does how do I say this to you? David just does a remarkable job. He is exceptional. He has his eye on the ball. Even Corey, the manager down there, and Jeff, the other manager / safety guy down there, they're all like that. They all have their head on the game, and they buy in because of the relationship. Went to Corey's wedding, know his folks. Dad's a truck driver. You just learn about people, and it's finding those right folks that match with you and you match with them. So that's
Dave, was that 10 solo or teams or drivers or trucks, or when you say
solo.
10?
I don't have any teams in Texas.
Solo. So there's your Jim asked in the chat, is 10 the number for solo or teams, or what is the number? So
yeah, we got 2 unassigned solos. I think we're up at 7 runs now, and honestly, we just purchased the contractor out down there. She had been wanting to get out, and she called me. So that's really the only purchase I've ever done of anything along those lines. But it was a smaller misses, but it just worked because we've got a run that now meets our Indy trucks. So what that allows us to do is, we've got stuff goes back and forth to our shops. All the rest of the stuff, any of that kind of thing we need to do, we save a lot just in shipping. So but that's what our biggest business in Texas, honestly, is our P&D business. And I preach this to people. P&D breeds Linehaul, and my numbers, cost per mile numbers, every number any dynamic you want to look at, profitability or anything, the P&D side of the business for the tractors, not the vans, but for the tractors is the only way to go if you want to make your numbers look right.
Interesting. Okay, I hadn't heard that. That's a good data point. Tim, what do you think the number is? Same question to you. Is 10 the number? And Dave says that your driver manager also needs to be able to drive. Do you agree, or what would you add to that list?
Well, I think 10 is a pretty good number. And I think things have changed a lot since Dave grew his business, right? So 19 years ago was a completely different landscape, both in FedEx Ground and its level of expectations and contractual requirements, the focus on safety and DOT compliance. And FedEx used to do a lot more for contractors in terms of benefits, et cetera, that they don't do anymore. So it's a very much a different world as a FedEx Ground contractor in today's world than it was those days. And I think it's a tribute to Dave that he's been able to adapt to the many changes in the industry along the way and continue to excel. But it's much more challenging to start now without having some experience on how to run a business. And but what we have available now was not available then in the same kind of capability is technology. And so Dave mentioned something that I think is extremely important in any business, and all the businesses I've been in, and I've hired thousands and thousands of people over the course of time, is particularly in the management staff, you're looking for people you can trust. And so I start there. So when I'm thinking about how I'm going to build an organization, and as you've already heard from me, I'm thinking about it a lot way before I ever do anything. So in my case, I'm not a driver. I can land planes on ships, but I can't drive trucks. So I think that actually was an advantage for me. And if I was going to talk to someone who is a truck driver trying to figure out how to scale their management team, I think it's easier to find somebody to drive a tractor than it is to find somebody you can trust to run your business. So you might give thought to hiring a driver or two, and then you get out of the truck and manage your business because you can trust yourself. And then you can figure out how to go from there. But I think there's some other things that you have to think about. The most important thing you have as a business owner is time, and you have to figure out how to maximize the value of your time. And as a business owner, you do not maximize your time by driving a tractor all the time. If you're driving every single day, then you are hurting yourself, in my view, because you can find somebody to drive a tractor way easier than you can find somebody that you can trust to do your payroll or your books or anything else. But there's plenty of tools out there that are not expensive that you can help. So for instance, I absolutely hate doing IVMRs. Hate it with a passion. And I don't let drivers do it. I never did. When I started the business, they were all messed up. And I landed squarely in the middle of an exceptions report fiasco like the world has never seen. And so it took me a while to get out of that. And as soon as I did, I hired somebody to do IVMRs for me, clerical person, as Dave pointed out. And then as soon as I heard about TruckSpy, in those days, Easy IVMR, I outsourced that, right? So so you can get a high quality product on a really challenging part of the business as you grow. That takes an awful lot of time. There's a way to do that more cost effectively. I don't do payroll myself in terms of processing it in QuickBooks or an accounting software. I do payroll every day. So I have someone that helps me. We do payroll every day. And so when it gets to the end of the week, we're already ahead of the game. We validate with the settlement and we send a report to a payroll service that just uploads it into QuickBooks, handles all the deductions and sends out W-2s and all those kinds of things. So there are ways that are inexpensive to put time back in your day. And the time in which you can get out of the truck as a business owner and run your business yourself gives you a chance to talk to FedEx and get more opportunities. I was in FedEx somewhere all the time. And just by being there and building a relationship with those folks, there are opportunities that fall in your lap. They're not assigned runs, but there's opportunities they have available for you to start moving empty equipment around or taking on a new spot. You don't get those opportunities if you're not standing there in front of them growing your business because you have someone else driving. So I would encourage folks that if you're going to own a business at FedEx Ground, you should be finding a way to do what Dave has done and get out of the truck, because no one will run your business better than you, because your house is on the line. All those loans have personal guarantees, and no one will take it more seriously than you. Certainly clerical employees are valuable, but they're non-revenue generators. So you have to be very wary of how much of that you bring on board. All my supervisors are drivers, so they all drive, and I pay them accordingly. They are combination salary and driver pay depending on what they do, and they're the backup drivers, so I make them accountable to get their guys to show up to work, and if they don't show up, then they get to fill in, so they get to share the pain. But we use technology in many different areas of the business to put cycles back into management teams' hands and back into supervisors' hands. One of the biggest things you have to learn how to manage in this business is, can you still hear me, Dave? Yeah, because we lost Flint there. So you have to figure out how to communicate with drivers without calling them off 5 times a day and without texting with them 5 times a day. You can do that when it's 3 or 4 tractors. When you're 85 tractors like Dave, that doesn't work anymore. So everyone has a different way of doing it, but the way we do it at Oscar Mike is every day we write a schedule. We use Excel and we write a schedule. Every run is on the schedule, every spot is on the schedule, every driver is on the schedule, his truck assignment's on the schedule, and we publish it every day by 1 p.m. And we send it out by email. And we evaluate drivers in the hiring process for their email capabilities. If you're somebody who's never done email and you refuse to learn, I'm not going to hire you as a driver. That sounds crazy, but let me tell you, the number of cycles we save by using technology to communicate saves the company thousands of dollars a year in oversight. So there are ways to leverage technology to improve your management capabilities and save the company money. And of course, the software we're working on will take that to another level. But even without that capability, you can leverage technology to make your management more efficient, more resilient. And the better you execute, I tell truck drivers that you have to be a truck driver to work for me, but what you're going to be doing is not really truck driving. Because let me tell you, FedEx Ground is not truck driving. You drive a truck, but it's way more than that. It's an environment unlike any other trucking environment, right? You got to leave on time, you got to get somewhere on time, and you got to make things happen. And if you don't watch out, they will leave you out in the cold for 3 hours, and the next thing you know, you're late for the next run, and your trailers were ready 3 hours ago, and nobody told you, and all this kind of stuff. So you're not looking for somebody to broker your next load. You don't have to call back and let people know you made it. You have a time schedule you have to keep. And we're moving FedEx customers' product, and you may have thousands of customers on your trailer, right? And every one of those matters individually. So you have to think differently as a driver, and you have to manage drivers differently to teach them in the training process and follow up with them how to execute the plan. And if you do all those things, then the management problem is easier. And so you have to organize the company in a way to process out the management problems to the extent that you can, and then have some supervisors to oversee that. On a nightly basis, we'll run 40, 45 tractors, and I do that with 1 or 2 supervisors across 3 states and 7 domiciles. And we do that a lot by technology and organization.
Yep. So there was a lot of interesting stuff there, Tim. I think you hit the nail on the head when you said your most valuable asset is your time. That is absolutely 100% true. And I'm guilty of this in my business. I think as an entrepreneur, our first instinct is to jump in and do and work a 14-hour day and never stop doing things, right? Like completing tasks. But sometimes I think it's important to remember, like, sit back and think strategically about your business. Are you spending your energy in the right places? Do you have the right staff? Are you making the right decisions? Because it's so easy to get to go down this rabbit hole of do and miss the entire forest because you're focused on the trees, right? And you've completely picked the wrong path. So, I mean, highly recommend, if you are still actively driving a truck, you find a way not to do that, or to do that significantly less. you should not be a dedicated truck driver if you own 4 or 5 or 10 trucks, and you're a FedEx contractor. So that look, I got a couple of questions. So let's and it looks like Dave's just been doing a hell of a job answering questions for me as we go through. So Olson, you just asked one about offering what is your package when you hire drivers. I'm going to punt this question to our next webinar. We're going to be talking specifically about recruiting, benefits packages, how you go out and market and hire drivers, how you get them through the system, all of those kind of things. So you will get an email on that webinar. That is August. It's July 22nd. So 2 weeks from today, 3 p.m., you'll get a sign up link. We had, and it looks like Dave had kind of already addressed you anyway here. So we had a couple of others. So maintenance locations, how many trucks at a single location before you open your own maintenance facility? And Dave, I think you've got excellent advice here, and it looks like you already answered that one in the chat, but would you mind providing us some of your thoughts? I think you're on mute, Dave. There you go.
I'm sorry, my phone was ringing. I was trying to be good with everybody else. I apologize for that. Yeah, I mean, and understand it's a little different. We started here in Indy. We had a really good foundation of a 25, 30 truck business. We did really good business here. We have teams, singles, P&D. We kind of did everything correctly. So when we did open our business down in Tampa, and we were allowed to, I don't know how to say it, we were allowed to grow at the right pace. We got into Tampa when Amazon was just starting to open down there, and FedEx got the Amazon business. So I knew what was coming, obviously, because we already have a huge Amazon presence up here at that time. Then we were able to get in, and I knew they were going to need some help, and they knew they were going to need some help. So we kind of got in the right way. So we grew really quick down there. I mean, we're at 29 trucks or 30 trucks down there right now. We have more trucks there than we have here in India right now. I don't know if you can hear me or not, but anyhow, just looking at the notes there. But when you talk about that shop, you also got to remember there's clerical. When you start getting above that 8 or 10 people, you got to remember that there's just those little things that you need to do. So, and I mentioned on the side here that when we opened our Dallas shop, and even our shop in Tampa, and we've kind of gone back to that. I had a husband and wife that worked for me up here. Husband was the mechanic, and his wife was a bookkeeper at a trucking company. So they wanted to move to Florida. That was what worked for them, for their family. And it helped that we could put them both down there. I got them at a fairer wage because they just wanted to move to Florida. Okay, well, that helped me. So we were able to kind of get both sides of that. And we had the clerical side covered. We had the maintenance side covered. And then we did enough outside work down there with the shop where we were able to keep the maintenance business where it needed to be. And as we grew, now we have a shop down there, but my manager Brad down there, and Jeff, and Kristen, and Christian, and the rest of the team down there, we do all our simple maintenance, but the big stuff goes to the dealers, because we found that having a $70,000 a year mechanic doesn't always make sense. But when I've got mechanically inclined guys down there that can take care of it, take care of the basic simple stuff. We got a Goodyear dealer next door. We were able to do things we need to do. You have to adjust, and you have to pivot. I pivoted from a full maintenance. We did everything ourselves in the shop. We pivoted, and we got our costs where they needed to be, and we saved $40,000 a year because we're taking it to the dealer for the big things. We handled the simple, basic things that we have to in the shop, and we trade our trucks between $450,000 and $500,000. So, we're on a whole different cycle of things there. So I think it adapts to your business, and once you can simplify it, where you can have, like we have in Texas, Alex in Texas, he does all our wet maintenances and stuff, and Corey helps them, and Jeff helps them, and it's just we don't do a ton of maintenance down there. They're day cabs. They're mostly chewy, 400 miles a week kind of thing. So you're not doing a ton of maintenance every week. You just have to adapt it to what works. There's not a formula that tells you everything's right. I have all new trucks. There's nothing older than 2018, 2019 now. So it changes your how you have to look at that maintenance side too. Where before we'd have 10-year-old trucks, so you had to have a full-time mechanic because you're putting clutches in and doing brakes and the rest of it. Now it's a little simpler, so you just have to adapt. And we've been blessed through Volvo Trucks adapting with the technology and being able to kind of take care of everything. So there's not a simple formula, and everybody's a little different. So always willing to help anybody, but think of it that way.
Tim, you've got your own shop too, right?
I do, and I agree with Dave that you have to adapt. And I got into this business and I bought a little 3-truck operation 3 years ago, and now we're at 58. So we've managed a lot of problems over the past 3 years that have been complicated by growth. And the 3 trucks that came with the business were all like 2006 trucks. And so they were maintenance nightmares, though they were pre-emissions. So that was one thing that was good about them. But when you start trying to grow your business, then you're trying to buy tractors. And what I encourage people to do as a business owner is you have to really understand how much things cost. And you cannot just look at what other people do and say, well, I have to do that. So you have to understand what you're trying to accomplish in your business and what you can afford to do. So the reality is a $10,000 truck generates the same revenue as a $150,000 truck. The question is can you keep that $10,000 truck running? So what I chose to do when I started my business is I bought less expensive tractors. They were older tractors. I bought them for $20,000 or $25,000 a piece, and they were more expensive to maintain. But that $125,000 that I didn't owe was better for my business at that point in time, right? So one of the things I learned about being a combat pilot is for a United States pilot, it's just as important on how you get back from the mission as it is on how you get to the target location. So we don't do kamikaze missions. So we had an exit strategy for everything that we did. And one of the things you need to think about in business, and Clint mentioned about spending some serious time thinking about all the things that go on in your business. Well, one of the things you want to think about is how do you get out of any decision that you make? So whatever decision you make needs to have an exit strategy. So I knew that if I got into using older trucks, it was going to be more expensive, and then I was going to have to do maintenance myself. I was going to have more maintenance. Well, we all know to buy maintenance at the dealer or anywhere else is $125 to $150 an hour. Well, I can buy maintenance at a lot lower price than that, and have it dedicated and have the same focus on my operation with my own mechanics, right? So that's how we started. And then as the business grew and it got more profitable, then we began to upgrade tractors. So now we're in a position where many of our remote locations, we have tractors that are not brand new, but they're under extended warranty. So for the next 3 years or so, when we get a tractor for the next 300,000 miles, 3 years, that tractor is under factory warranty, like Dave's trucks are that come in new. But I'm buying that truck for half the price of a new truck. So my return on that investment, the use of capital, is higher because I'm able to let someone else pay that depreciation, and I can get a truck that allows me to make the same revenue at a much lower cost on a per truck basis. And now those remote locations have warranty service. And so now I just need local service, which I have outsourced to provide the brake fix, on brakes or PMs or something like that. And then I have an operation in Central Alabama that supports 4 stations, and we do all the maintenance for all 4 of those stations in one facility. So we have a maintenance staff there. We work 2 shifts. We always have somebody in the maintenance shop whenever trucks are coming and going in the yard. I actually chose to operate my trucks from my shop. I'm just a couple miles from the FedEx facility. So all my trucks are at the shop all the time unless they are pulling freight. So anytime we need to work on a tractor, we can walk out there and do it. When we don't have to drive down to the shop, take everything with you. You're limited by certain things you can do on the FedEx properties. So we looked at what are we spending time on, because time is money, and how can we eliminate minutes here, 30 minutes there, an hour there, to become more efficient and make judgment calls, or not really judgment calls, but assess what's the most cost-effective way to solve this problem. And the most cost-effective way for me to solve my problem in my remote locations that are too far from my shop is to buy more expensive tractors that come with warranty, so I can get that work done like Dave does his. And in locations where I have a shop available, I can operate less expensive tractors, which are more profitable per mile. And when you figure it all in, I've done the numbers a million different ways. I still am more profitable on those tractors than someone who's buying a brand new tractor, because a brand new tractor will cost you $30,000-$40,000 a year. Well, $30,000 a year anyway. And I can get that done for a lot less than that. So it doesn't mean that works in everybody's business, but that's what works in my business. And the theme that you're hearing from Dave and from Flynn and from me is you need to understand your business. You need to understand what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, what can you do well, and focus on doing those things. And I used to work for this CEO or chairman, and he's a very successful guy and very, very wealthy. And he had this to say: the main thing in business is to keep the main thing the main thing. And that's a very simple way of saying, understand what you do well and find somebody else to help you do the things that you don't do well. And nobody will be more focused on the success of your business than you. Nobody will be a better representative in front of FedEx than you. So you have to find ways to get yourself in front of FedEx so you can win more business. And you need to find ways to operate your business to achieve a target margin. Don't take the margin that you get. Figure out what margin you need to make, and then adjust your business costs to help you get that margin. And so I run a mix, right? I run tractors. That's the most expensive capital you have, of course. I run tractors that have warranty on them, and I run tractors that don't have warranty. And it just depends on where they are, on where I put them, and how I maintain those tractors. And then, of course, obviously, labor is extremely important. Flint's going to talk that on the next call that he has. But like Dave, I offer full benefits. I pay them extremely well. We have 401ks. We pay bonuses. The cost of churn is really expensive, and you have to find a way to manage that out to the extent that you can. And you will never eliminate truck driver churn. I ran big businesses all over the world, and I was able to get employee churn to less than 5% a year, most of the time less than 3% a year. And it's impossible in this business. So I've had to recalibrate how I think about employee churn and employee turnover and what's successful in retention. So if you're in a tractor all the time, you don't have time to think about how to solve those problems. So you got to find a way to grow your business to 5 or 6 tractors so you can get out of it and drive once or twice a week on weekends to fill in versus every day. And now you can start to have time to think about and analyze these problems about how should I maintain tractors, how much should I pay for tractors, and how do I get my employees, and all these kinds of things. You can't do that driving a tractor. So, and there's no magic formula. I've done it several different ways, and wherever I am, I customize a solution for that particular location. And Dave has done something very similar to that.
So yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're 100% right. So just to kind of take that one step further, at this point in your business, and this is Ranjit's question. At this point in your business, what are the daily challenges that you guys are dealing with? Because that's probably different than a contractor that's running 7 trucks and having to drive. So, and maybe some of it is good challenges and not good challenges, but what keeps you guys up at night? And I'll just interject. We've got about 10 more minutes, and I want to get to Devin's question. So just
I'll go real fast on that one. The thing that keeps me up at night is safety. Because if you want to put your investment at risk, you have let yourself get into a safety problem. I've been there. So you have to find a way to spend the resources it takes to ensure that you have drivers that are operating your equipment safely. Because FedEx will throw you out of this business on your head if you have a lot of safety issues, and it won't take them long to do it. So you have to pay attention to safety. So I think, Flint, you should have a webinar on safety programs if you don't have one already.
Yep, we sure do. And I'd have to look at my calendar. We're going to have an expert safety consultant. He's got about, I think it's 20 years of risk mitigation experience in the trucking industry working for major insurance companies.
Yeah,
we're going to talk primarily about drive cameras, because that is the number one way that you can help mitigate your safety risk. There's other stuff too, vehicle inspections, and at the end of the day, it all comes down to culture. So yes, please join us for that session. We will email you a link to register. And I agree with you guys. And that's trucking industry wide. That's not just here at FedEx. Like it's a big deal. Liability is a big deal everywhere. Dave, what would you say is keeping you up?
Nothing. Oh, I'm just kidding. You know, the thing that probably kind of, and I think everybody's seen it, is the recruiting and the being able to get people approved, get people on board, and get the rest of that. You know, honestly, that's been everybody's struggle. And the driver pool and employee pool is obviously terrible right now. And that's the one thing I get concerned about, because, you know, just like you know, you gotta always fulfill your roles and keeping your percentiles right and doing things correctly. And FedEx understands the problems that we're seeing in all this. FedEx understands where we need our help, and I know that the settlement enhancements coming this year, from what I'm being told, are going to be very helpful. But I worry about the recruiting side of it, and I don't just count the safety side. I took a safety approach about 2014, and before forward crash was anything, before lane departure was, you know, we're just putting it on trucks. I always took a safety approach. I had a full-time safety guy in 2014. You know, I had a guy, military experience, went through the safety stuff. Back, I don't know, 2019, I actually hired a full-time safety guy, Steve Bridgeway from Federal Express. He was retiring down there in the Gulf. Steve was the guy that gave me my road test here in Indianapolis, because he was our terminal safety guy here in Indy back when I started in 03. So, and then we have safety guys in Dallas and in Florida, where that's their total job. But they're truck drivers too. So if you got a truck that needs to go to the shop, or you got a truck that needs tires, they have other jobs that they do. But being able to focus on the safety side has kept us in good shape. I saw a question about, you know, suffering from impacting from terminal to terminal. Honestly,
question. So let's go there, and that deals right with safety, right?
Yeah, it's all about safety and understanding that. And, you know, before FedEx required us to have all this stuff on our trucks, I was already 2 years into it on all my trucks. So I was ahead of that curve, because I just knew how important it was. And through my risk management stuff that I do with my insurance company, Van Liner, through our Turbo group, you know, we were already ahead of the game on a lot of those issues. And I think that was very important. I haven't had the trouble, because I got ahead of it and got ahead on safety. I got ahead on safety because I just came from the, you know, you talk about Tim, and we talk about the military culture, doing stuff right, doing it right the first time, having a plan, putting it all into place, doing everything the right way. It's beat into your head when you're in the service. So, and if you can get this across to your guys and gals on your teams, and I do a weekly safety call with all my drivers every Monday at 9 a.m. I've got, you know, my whole team is on the call. Now, there are some variances, obviously, with scheduling and stuff, but we have an email that the ones that can't do it. But of the 135 employees, we're probably at 85, 80, 88% typically that are on the call, and we're open and honest about our safety deal. We're open and honest, and it comes from me. So it's helpful that the guys and gals know how important it is to me to always do this. Now, Steve my safety guy does take these calls when I'm off or traveling or whatever, but you got to make it a culture. And I know it's hard because they're just all over the place. And I know we have to have a life, we got it, but it still gets back to getting in front of our people. So like here in Indy, we haven't had an at fault or not at fault accident in over a year. Texas, we're not that blessed. Florida, we're not that blessed, but we're within whatever it's acceptable terms. We're not green, but we're not red. We're at an average for the size operation we have in those locations, and that's pretty impressive considering the amount of P&D we do, and some of those levels are going to change as far as the accountability goes in this new contract, is what I'm understanding. So I think some of that stuff will be more helpful to those of us that take those bigger risks doing the city work. So but just understand that you got to make the safety the priority, because that'll keep all that stuff. I've been here 19 years. I've never had a contractual obligation where I had to. Now, I've wrote letters of assurance when somebody did something stupid, and we've corrected it and gone on down the road. But there's never been a time, and I'm knocking on whatever this wood is on my desk here. I'm knocking on wood that this doesn't happen. But as far as that goes to a point where anything was worse, no. And it's because you just have to make safety personal. It's the owner's job. I'm sorry, it's not the safety guy's job. It's the owner's job to make safety personal and primary in your business. You can't pawn it off. It has to be the owner's job. It doesn't mean you have to engulf yourself in it. I spend an hour a week writing up what I'm going to talk about on a 3 to 5 minute conversation. But to me, that's the most important part of it, being personally involved on the safety side, because the rest of it will come around, and just being yourself as far as with your guys and gals in the truck. So.
Yep.
I'll just add that what Flint said and what Dave said, if you don't do anything else in safety, keep current on coaching your Lytics videos, your drive cam videos. That will show you the behaviors. If you haven't switched to the Lytics video yet, I know it's a little more expensive. They have a really good deal right now, but you need to be on the Lytics SF300 cameras. The AI that they use in those cameras will help you a lot, because you can coach those behaviors. You'll have a dashboard that's telling you, by the way, I don't own stock in Lytics. I'm just telling you, it helps my business. I've made it a kind of a theme in this webinar to talk about how to put time in your day as a business owner. And you can be way more efficient and stand on top of your safety program by doing a better job of staying on top of your videos. And if you have good video capability with that behavior management, then you'll get right to the root of the problem. You'll figure out what a driver is doing, and you can coach that specific problem, hold that driver accountable. Your time is more efficient, and you're addressing the issue. So
Yep.
Safety is the most important thing you do. You have to find a way to put time on that. So.
Yep. Well, guys, I want to just take this. I mean, we're out of time, and I really appreciate Dave, Tim, you all taking an hour out of your day to join me for this. I think we've covered a lot of really good information. We have provided some value today, hopefully, to those that attended. So sincere thanks to you two for joining us. And look, guys, I also want to thank all of our audience. I mean, you've taken an hour. Hopefully, you're focused on building your business, improving your business. Hopefully, you found this useful, and you'll join us for our session on 7/22 focused on recruiting. So with that, guys, again, really, really appreciate you. And Scott says best session yet. That's what I like to hear, Scott. So everybody, please have a good day and stay safe out there on the road. Thank you very much.
All right.
Y'all be good. Thank you.
Be safe.
All righty. Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye now.